Hello and welcome to another episode of 5 Minutes with Mike. And yes, we are outside again. Outside. Which is very befitting for this episode considering, hey, football is played outside, for most teams at least. And this episode is Nick Saban enjoyed making millions, but he retired when NIL allowed his players to make M's too.
This is 5 Minutes with Mike, our news, our voice, and our opinion. With your host, Michael Beckford. Now stop, listen, and pay attention for 5 Minutes with Mike.
Nick Saban, Coach Nick Saban was a god to many at the University of Alabama. And to some, he still is. Granted, Nick Saban is a great coach. Matter of fact, he's an excellent coach. He's won a ton of championships. He's helped many of his players get drafted in the league, the NFL that is, and move on to bigger and greater things. But one of Nick Saban's biggest problems as a head coach is the fact that he was an anti-player coach when NIL came around. For those that don't know what NIL stands for, it stands for name, image, likeness. Nick Saban was all for himself getting a bag, and believe me, he got some real big bags from the University of Alabama. And what have there stands in Alabama, which by the way is a publicly funded university, so essentially taxpayers in the state of Alabama paid for Nick Saban's exorbitant salary. But what happens when a god loses his grip on power? And 5 Minutes Mike is sponsored by The Sex Tour, Volume 2, a short story by Michael D. Beckford, which is available now for pre-order. Guys, please support me. It's my first book in 3 years. Anyway, please support. Order the copy on Amazon.com. Get your copy today. Yes, it's finally here. The Sex Tour, Volume 2 is available on Amazon.com. Pre-order your copy today. Link is in the description below. Now, let's get back into the episode. Number one. I said this last year on one of my YouTube shorts. When it came down to Nick Saban, and I'll say it again, this guy is anti-NIL, name, image, likeness. But I can't really fault Nick Saban as the head coach. You really have to go back to the American system of doing things when it comes down to profiting off the cheapest labor that you can find and make the greatest profit off of these individuals, i.e. capitalism. Capitalism at its core definition is to capitalize on someone else's atrocities. Plain and simple. And or having less than to make it sound a little bit prettier, right? It's the same reason why a company would pay a worker $10 to $12 an hour while they rake in $115 off that same worker or more, of course. Nick Saban is no different. He and his team of coaches recruited players from all types of hoods, mostly the black ones, that were impoverished, that lived off a pipe dream that one day, they'll make the NFL. And granted, a lot of these players did make the NFL, but unfortunately, only 1% of these players will have a career in the NFL past 2 years. Don't believe me? Google it. And it's not just Alabama. This thing overall is in sports all over when it comes down to professional sports. 1%, the less than 1% will make it. So otherwise, all these recruits are selling their players. They're selling these individual recruits when they go to their home, sit down with their mama, sit down with their preacher, sit down with whoever. They're selling them a dream that helps their back pockets. I digress. Number two, Nick Saban was the most anti-NIL coach there was out there. I know I'm going to rustle a lot of people's feathers because, like I said, this man is a god to certain people. But Nick Saban, he preached on the mountaintops how much he hated the new deals that the NCAA allowed to be orchestrated through NIL. By the way, just put yourself in the shoes of these players. If somebody makes a video game, put your image in there, put your name in there, put your likeness in there, your height, your weight, all that stuff in there. When you want to be compensated for it, I'll wait. By the way, I believe the new deal that NCAA did with the football, NCAA players did with football, but EA Sports is also a travesty. They're literally paying these players $600 and give them a free game to play their fellow classmates. I mean, essentially, they get $600 to sign off a waiver to be able to use their name and image and likeness. And to me, it's a BS payment. I mean, come on, guys. Come on. It's a disgrace because at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, they're paying them something versus these guys back in the day. They weren't getting paid a single nickel. But let's just look at the economics of it all. I did the math with how many players virtually had signed off at the time. It will cost EA Sports, which is the publisher of the NCAA games, it cost them roughly about $36 million for all the athletes to sign off at the time that signed off. Guess what, guys? Guess what? They'll make that $36 million back the first month, if not the first week. Number 3. I'm happy that Saban decided to retire. I'm very happy that he retired. I don't want him to come back. He is a part of the old guard, and I essentially need to bring in fresh blood. These are the understanding. Those that are the fresh blood that needs to come in are those that are understanding of the players, and because players ain't taking no crap no more. It is what it is. You got to get with it. These are the times. It's a get with it program. Nobody gave you flack when you decided that you wanted more money from Alabama every year or every other year. Have you decided to bid on your contract? Well, now it's a problem. You want to go before Congress and talk about, players don't need a salary, but I do think they need to make money and all this other stuff. Dude, you got butthurt because of the fact that at the end of the day, you can't control the pendulum that swung your way every year with all those championships because you got all the best players. Now that the pendulum is swinging in a different direction, anyway, you want to retire. Good. Stay retired. Find your good-ass rocking chair and never see a football field ever again, Mr. Nick Saban. Anyway, so here's the deal. They got mamas, baby mamas, debts to take care of before they leave college. And I'm talking about the student athletes. And they need to take off the word student because at the end of the day, they're just athletes that happen to play for colleges on their way to the NFL, right? Or the NBA, whatever professional league that they decide to go to. By the way, nobody ever complains when conferences like the SEC, the Big Ten, and things of that nature ask for more money from the media organizations, just like Nick Saban. Nobody complains. Nobody complains and say, oh, man, whoa, you shouldn't go to Fox or ESPN and ask them for more money. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Nobody says that. These leagues are raking in millions of dollars off the backs of players, which is their labor. I don't care what you want to call them. Like I said, you call them student, athlete, you call them semi-pro students, but they're raking in millions of dollars off the labor of these athletes, building all kind of facilities, wild, brand new facilities out of nowhere. In some cases, nobody even asked for. But they're raking in millions of dollars, but say that they cannot pay their labor. Imagine you working at Chick-fil-A and they say, you know what? We got so many cars in drive-thru. We desperately need your help, but we can't pay you to work here at Chick-fil-A. What would you do? I know what you'll do. You'll say, hey, respectfully, I appreciate your time. I'm going somewhere else. And that's what players got to do. Because for years, the NCAA has been getting away with all these categories by calling them, quote unquote, student athlete. Getting away with it, in my mind, it's a criminal act. Because they didn't want to pay these players for their labor. And now that the playing field has gotten even for players to earn somewhat of a livable wage, depending on their position and their star talent, while on the football field and basketball courts of their day, all of a sudden the old massa got a problem with it. Any other institution, any other coach, hey, pay me. Players say pay me. Oh no, woo-hoo. Let's get Congress involved. You know why? Because like I said a minute ago, Nick freaking Saban is anti-NIL. He's anti-student athlete, anti-college athlete, and therefore, he's a clown. Now, let's take him to church. College football players need to have a union of sorts because the NCAA is not it. The NCAA, which stands for National Collegiate Athletic Association, is not there for the players. Sorry, they're not. They're for the colleges and the boosters that represent them. Just like the National Football League, it's not for the players, they're for the teams. They're primarily there to represent the owners. Vested interest, because it's only the owners that have the voting powers when it comes down to the game. So you can call them athletes. They need to have whatever, all kind of things that they decide to call them. At the end of the day, they need to have their own unions that represent them and their best interests, because if not, these particular gun-ho coaches like Nick Saban and others will do their best to represent their interests, and that's keeping their $1 million to flow to their bank accounts while leaving you as a student athlete with $0 to send home to mama. In the Sex Tour Volume 2, sex can be used as a powerful tool, an even more powerful weapon. Welcome to the city of Atlanta, where the lights are bright, the scams are steady, and sex is the ultimate drug of choice. The Sex Tour Volume 2, a novella by Michael D. Beckford, coming soon to ebook, paperback, and audio. Volume 1 of The Sex Tour is available now wherever books are sold. A short story by Michael D. Beckford is available for pre-order now on Amazon.com. Get your copy today. Yes, it's finally here. The Sex Tour Volume 2 available on Amazon.com. Pre-order your copy today. Link is in the description below. Please like and hit the subscribe button. 5 Minutes Mike is written, produced, and directed by Michael D. Beckford. All rights reserved. Copyright 2024. Speak Publishing International. The Michael Beckford Media Group, LLC production. Thank you for listening and watching. Outside, outside, outside.